Hey everybody, welcome to Adrift. Yeah, sad times that we're going through. Try and have a different setup right now, so this is going to be a little different for me. I hope you don't mind, but very trying times that we're going through right now. We're going to have Death to Tennis. We're going to talk about rebellious thought. I just got the request, so I'm tuning in with William Watson right now. All right, tuning in. There he is. There's the man.
How you doing?
I'm doing all right, man. How are you?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing okay.
It's a strange question to ask right now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. I mean, are you out in the streets every day? Are you shooting in the streets? Are you taking photos in the street? Or
actually, I live in kind of the woods, so my form of protest has been wearing all black, biking around, just showing this great face of mine. It's been weird because I live in a predominantly white neighborhood. And, it's very woodsy, very farmer-like, so we have our Trump supporters, and I'm not going to get into that part of it, but it's been interesting to see kind of the response of people just seeing me, not saying anything, not having any sort of picket or, I'm not raising hell, I'm just being me, so it's been very,
right.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's interesting times we're living in. Hopefully, something will come of it, but
Well, so
I mean, I don't know. You saw what happened yesterday with the dude with the bloody Bible.
Yeah.
I don't even think it was the right way up. I mean, so those are the guys who are those are the people who are supposed to be the ones who can change some stuff, and you're like.
Mm-hmm. Well, dude, it's interesting, and also Whiskey Tango T Foxtrot, that's my friend over in Philly, so thank you for showing the love. Thank you for everybody who's joining, by the way, as well. And it's just interesting because this idea about rebellious thought, we were talking about this like before this whole thing happened, and it's just so strange that, almost serendipitous that this would be the topic specifically today. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's kind of surreal in a way, considering everything that happened with George Floyd, Breonna Taylor. I mean, the list goes on, and I feel like it's the perfect time to talk about rebellious thought and to kind of get people a little bit more riled up. I feel like, this whole riot and protesting thing, people are upset about things being destroyed, but sometimes you've got to raise hell in order for things to be interesting, and
I mean, they don't listen to anything else. They don't listen to peace. They don't you saw yesterday they tear gassed and sent those firecrackers into those peaceful guys just to move people on so he could walk across the street. They're killing people every day. How many times? I mean, I've lived in the U.S. since '99, and I think school shootings, black people getting killed every single day, almost on a daily basis every day since I've been here. That's almost 20 years, and it's like I haven't seen much, if any, change from anybody. And everybody, even when Obama was in power, it was still happening every day, and he had little or no real effect on it stopping. So if him at the top, if you can't do that with him at the top, how can, I mean, I have little faith that anything's going to get done right now, Hopefully they vote this guy out. I'm not a citizen, so I don't get a right to vote. So hopefully you guys all vote this guy out, and then I think something might happen. But when this guy's in power, and those people who are in power right now, they don't care nothing about before this last week they were telling people to go back to work in the middle of pandemic. Go back to work. Who's that for? That's not for you, for your $15 an hour or your $7 an hour. It's for their pockets. It's not for your pockets. You need money to eat. They just need that, the stock market to go up,
They do. Yeah, there's
So,
been a lot of interesting speculation about the stock market too, so I can get into that. But it's funny because, all right, so we just jumped in, and I don't know if everybody knows exactly who you are. So let's invite William Watson here onto Adrift, and I know you know there's been a lot of talk, especially, and I don't want to throw you under the bus. It's just there's been a lot of talk about, with the black squares and kind of promoting black businesses, black ownership. And we had this conversation in line, and I wanted to make sure that your time was respected, my time's respected. I am Afro-Latino, so this is my show. I wanted to respect the sanctity of what we already decided to do. So I thank everybody who is joining. If you are out there trying to become more informed about the Black Lives Matter movement, I understand that. That's totally cool. It'll be on IGTV, so you guys could check it out later. But William Watson, I have a whole little intro, and you know how I love my intros. So, William Watson, born in South Shields, England, is the owner and designer at Death to Tennis. And yes, I'm reading off of something, so you're just going to have to deal with it. William graduated with an MA in fashion menswear from the Royal College of Art, London. He has worked with high-profile names such as Moschino, Ralph Lauren, Fila, and DKNY. With his creative vision, he focuses energies on creating a label under his own name alongside his now former partner stylist Vincent Ocean. After 2 years, they decided to team up on a new and unique creative endeavor we now know as Death to Tennis, beginning with a collection launched late 2013-14. Death to Tennis continues to eschew your traditional idea of fashion by taking function in garments to new heights with utilitarian details like the subtle snap button pockets that are kind of right here in the chest. I always love those, placed angularly at the chest, to more noticeable details like the detachable pouch on the back of joggers, which I'm super into that. A rebellious nature guides the development of these unique ideas, and Death to Tennis continues to be at the forefront of innovation and fashion. We warmly invite William Watson to Adrift. So thank you for being here.
Nice to be here. Nice to be. Good intro. Good intro.
Yeah. And, so the part that I didn't mention is that you've kind of been around the world. And I feel like, when you talk about being a rebellious thinker, you have to almost be worldly. You have to know that there's a world outside of your own personal experience. So how has that kind of shaped your mindset?
Well, I mean, like, truth be told, I come from a small town in England, north of England. If anybody knows anything about England, the north is like, it's the place like they don't care about. So it's very poor. There's no money. There's no work. The main industry in my town was coal mining. So I come from a coal mining place. Remember in the 80s and the 90s they had like the coal riots and all that kind of thing in England. That I grew up all around there. And then, so. I moved away at 18. And for some reason I knew I was going to get out of there, and I got out of there as quick as possible. So I went to art school, and that got me out. And and then it just went from there. So I moved down south, moved to London, slowed my accent down a lot so people could understand me. This is 20 years in New York and slowed down a lot. So, hopefully everyone can understand me. Then, so I moved to London where I met my, friend base. And then we all kind of moved to Italy. And then I came here in 99. So, yeah, I've been kind of, a little bit of everywhere, So, that's kind of the background of me and how I got here, I was in Italy the late 90s, and then decided I needed to be in a country where I could understand the language, understand the people, so I moved here, and never left. Lived in the city for over most of that time, and then, now I'm in Queens with my wife, so,
Excellent. So moving on, do you feel like you've been able to kind of experience different cultures, and that's kind of added to the grand whole of your understanding?
Yeah, I mean, when I grew up in the town I grew up with, there was two families that weren't white. It was the Indian people who ran the corner store and the Chinese people who ran the Chinese restaurant. That was it. But now, and since I kind of moved away, my entire friend group is kind of the opposite of that. I mean, I only really have maybe one or two white friends,
Mm.
and that's not because I'm like I've sought it. It's just the fact that growing up in London, it was kind of the people who I hung around with were more the people who I understood, and that just happened to be happened to be mixed. We went to school, it was mixed. People who we all hung out with in that town were very it was black, it was Indian, it was Pakistani, it was Asian. So that's kind of really what I grew up with over in England, and that just kind of followed me here. So that's kind of and it wasn't really out of choice. I didn't like search that out. It just kind of happened because it was kind of they understood what I understood at the time, and same thing now. I feel more comfortable around that kind of culture just because it's what I've grown up with, than kind of a white preppy kind of a east side kind of, I don't know anything about that. So it's kind of, you understand what I mean? It's like I don't really understand that. So anyway.
I do know. So that actually segues into Death to Tennis, because I feel like the name and the whole identity is very interesting. So where does Death to Tennis come from now?
Well, originally I had the name back in 2005 from a sketch. Do a little sketch of a tennis and tennis rackets and a skull, and the name came from that. But over time it's developed into kind of like a mantra of tennis is a metaphor for your fears, your dreams, and death is the killer of all of those, and that's kind of even more relevant right now because it's like, everybody's mortality is a lot more kind of, you see it can be taken away from you in an instant,
Yeah.
So, and it's even more about, I feel like it's even more relevant now where it's like, you really have to kind of leave all your dreams on the table before you kind of go off to the next wherever there is. You know what I mean? Really kind of, you only got this much time, and no one knows how long that's going to be. So you got to kind of put it all out. So, and I think things that are happening right now are even, making it even more clear. That, and that's why I think you have these riots and you have everything because people are tired. People realize life is short. So why not now? When's it going to be if it's not now?
Yeah, I saw this chart that was really interesting because, some people are very visual. In fact, I'm sure a lot of us are visual. And it was this chart that showed slavery, separate but equal, and then freedom, right? And the amount of time that slavery went on for far exceeds the amount of time that people have been free for. So it's really fascinating to kind of explore that sort of an idea, and it really puts into perspective why people are so upset right now. So to your point, if I may, to your point, you got to keep fighting. You know what I mean? You got to keep fighting. You got to keep the message alive, and you got to stay strong. And if you don't, then they're just going to continue to forget because they're more used to slavery than they're used to your being free.
Well, and I think most people are out there fighting because most people don't think they're free. Most black people in this country don't really see themselves as free, and you can't really deny that. I mean, coming from where I come from, you can see it real clearly. It's like black people have like a square that they can live in this much, and it's surrounded by police. And if they try to move out of here to get a fresh vegetable or to try and get ahead, they get it's suspicion and it's murder a lot of times. So you understand why it's really how free are they? It's still a cage. It's just a slightly bigger cage.
Right.
So
and it's not as visible either. It's something more felt, something more emotionally and socially created.
yeah, I mean, I don't know how it is to be black, but I have a lot of friends who do because they are, and I can see from their face, and you can see what's going on right now that. They obviously, they feel fear every day when they walk out on the street because it's like only because of the color of their skin. I don't have that problem because I'm not that color, but a lot of people do have that problem, and I think that's not really freedom, is it? It's not really freedom if you kind of, you can't walk down the same street as I can walk down without suspicion from other people on that street that you're doing harm or you're doing wrong or you're not in your designated area.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, England has racism. England has the same problems. It's just that I think more. I don't know. I feel well, especially from when I grew up in the late '80s and '90s. We integrated a little bit more. So I don't know what it's like now because I haven't lived there for 20 odd years. So, but it's just I think there's a class system in England where it's like if you come from this much money, you kind of hang here. So I feel like if you're poor, you mix more because you all come from the same nothing. You know what I mean?
Right.
You all have nothing, so you're kind of more, you know. So yeah, I mean, I understand. I understand why people are upset over here. It's like, why wouldn't you be? It's like, it's like, you're not given anything. You're supposed to be happy with nothing. You know.
You're just supposed to be happy to be free, of course. And so we got a comment here. Berno, who's a good friend of mine, you absolutely love this man. We have an energy that is unmatched and no culture can touch it. Every single culture wants it. With that, the system wants us to feel powerless because they know we create everything. That is power. Very good point. We are the identity of the zeitgeist of society. Right. It's interesting when you're talking about fashion because streetwear, when you look at it, there's a lot of different components to it, and a lot of that sort of identity, a lot of that edge in streetwear, arguably is directly drawn from Black culture. So how does that kind of factor into your creative process? That would be an interesting thing to kind of explore.
Well, we never really saw Death to Tennis as a streetwear brand. When we first started it, we were just more looking at clothing as like units of clothing. Like, this is a cool piece, this is a cool piece. It just happened that when we first came out, this is how long we've been struggling with this brand. It's like when we first came out, everybody was doing Americana. Every store had like checky jackets, axes, big bushy beards. That was everybody. So you couldn't get into a store if you were doing something different. So our style was really, I mean, it was streetwear, but it was just more, I think, it definitely had a London vibe, an English vibe, because we were both English, and, it very much had like a vibe that, just growing up, not, when you grow up in England, if you're not wearing a suit, I guess it's, what else are you wearing? It's streetwear. So it's just like we were really resonating different pieces. We grew up with Stone Island. People think like Drake invented Stone Island. Stone Island's been around for about 1,000,000 years. I grew up with Stone Island back in the 90s. It was the best clothing back in the 90s. It's still the best clothing now. And it's like 30 years later. So, we grew up with that. And it was very much like, just really amazing pieces and details. So that's how we always looked at it, and that's how we still look at it. So I don't really class it as streetwear. It's just more about like very wearable, cool clothes. Because I feel like streetwear is very much like, it has a very specific idea, and it's for a specific. If anything, we would call it adult streetwear because we don't go for like a fashion or a trend, and we gear towards a slightly more mature sensibility. Not necessarily age, just we're not trying to do graphic tees and hoodies all of the time. We're trying to do pieces, like thought about pieces.
Right. And it's interesting though, only because, and that's why I got so excited, is because there really does still seem to feel like there's an edge there. There's a very present kind of, I don't know, abrasive element about it, in the sense that we are doing things very differently than you're used to. And there's got to be a sense of rebellion in that.
Well, I mean, I think it's for like, it's an upbringing, but I think as a designer too, it's very much like, I mean, designing to come into an industry, especially from my background, mining town, no money, my choices were like coal mine or military, but I chose art school, So then it's like, then I choose design school, then I, did an MA in my early 20s at the Royal College to, in menswear, and then went off to Willie. So it's kind of like, it's a little rebellious to do that anyway, coming from my background, and then to think about every day you come in and like, well, there's 1,000,000 jackets. Why does anybody ever need to design another jacket or another shirt or another anything. It's like because you think you can do a better job than that guy, or you think you can offer something different, or so that's a rebellious thought in itself. Because I mean, there's enough clothes in the world right now for everybody, probably for at least 20 years, at least. You know, I mean, you see. Some of these people have. I have a friend of mine who has a whole room which is just sneakers, an entire room which is just sneakers. Like in his house, one room, it's locked, it's just boxes and boxes of sneakers. So it's kind of like, you know, people don't need that much stuff. So to come into it anyway and be like, I'm going to do something and I'm going to read, you have to kind of have a little bit of that nature, you know, a little bit, you know, and also, I mean, yeah, you have to, you know, because I mean, to think you can do a better bomber jacket, a better hoodie, a better shirt, then that's someone's already done, you know. I don't know. It's kind of a little bit rebellious in a way, because it's very much like, you know. And also when you start your own line, it's like, I'm going to do it and I'm going to show you guys. So
yeah,
you know.
so where does that come from though? I mean, like, where does that drive? Because you did mention before, like, I could be a miner, I could be this, but I went to art school. Like, where does that burning desire to do that come from?
Well, I think, you know, for me it was just like I knew I couldn't live in this tiny ass town. This little town, yeah, no good looking women. You know, like nothing. It's like, oh my God, you know. And you know, growing up, I grew up with, you know, when I grew up, no cell phones, no internet, nothing, you know. And so it was just like, I got to get out of here. There's nothing here. So, you know, I think now people are maybe not moving as much because they have the whole world in their hand. But back then it was like, I got to go see something, because this is not, you know, I felt out of place. I felt like this is not my town. You know, even though I was born here, this is not where I'm supposed to end up, because I feel so out of place here. And so eventually, you know, art school it was. You know, I applied for the military. I was too young, but they were like, come back in 6 months. And in that 6 month period, some old guy with a big beard, I cannot remember the life of me his name, and I studied with him for a year, and I can't remember his name, but came to the school at our class, showed me a portfolio, and I was like, I need that. I gotta have some of that. I didn't know me, because I drew all the time. You know, I always drew, and I didn't know you could do anything with it, because there was no access to anything. You know, now, you know, as a 5-year-old kid, there's a whole universe out there. You know, you can look at every museum online. You can see. I didn't know nothing. You know, my parents didn't have a shelf full of books. You know, nothing. So it's like, yeah, I saw that and I was like, I need that. I gotta have that. Let me get out of here. So
wait, all those sketches on the Instagram, all of those you do?
yeah.
Wait,
Well, I mean, I just spent the last like 2 months of lockdown. I've got about 300 new sketches just for a new athletic line I'm pondering. You know, so it's kind of like the last thing I do at the end of the day, I just pick up the pen and I sketch. You know, not really having a mind or a thought. Like, you know, I had a little bit of a thought process, but again, I just let it go. You know, see what comes out. You know. And whatever, I don't really have I'm going to take this jacket and look at the details. I'll just be like, it's like almost like, you know, like a train of thought type of thing, you know, just like, you know, when you write a journal and you just spew it out. So it's the same kind of thing. Yeah, it's the same kind of thing. So I just, you know, and I like to do it. And like, since I've had the time off, on this lockdown crazy shenanigans, you know, I've been, you know, just sketching every night, all the time. So I have hundreds and hundreds of new stuff. So
I did an episode about failure, and it's interesting that you bring this up, that you just kind of sketch. You don't really think about it. You're just going for it. I think, you know, especially when you're talking about rebellion, there's almost this lack of fear of failure. You know, with a rebellious mindset, you just go for it. There's no question. There's just do it, you know, and you kind of see where it takes you. You know, would you say that's accurate? Would you say that's...
Well, I mean, starting your own business, I mean, I worked in New York for 10 years before I really decided, okay, I've got to do this, you know, and then eventually, and I went for it. And I worked with small businesses, and like friends of mine who started businesses, and they all did all these things wrong, and so I'm like, I've got it all. I got the knowledge in here. I know how to do it. I'm gonna kick ass immediately. And again, right now it's 2020. Death to Tennis has gone through a number of changes. 2020 really kind of kicked our ass. No one's seen this coming. When we were just relaunching in a big way in Japan. And it killed Japan. We just had new people who are doing our production out of Asia, so it killed Asia too. So it's like, you have to have that, like, you got to keep going. As an artist, you have, I want the line to be successful. I want this to be a success, but it's almost like, as an artist, you have to keep going either way.
Right.
I feel like, not everybody's going to be, Kevin Hart, as a comedian said, but all those guys who aren't going to be Kevin Hart don't just give up. You know what I mean? There's room for everybody, but you've got to keep going. And you've got to have that drive every day to keep going. To even to be like, well, I'm going to be like that guy at least. You got to have that thought in your mind, because if you don't have that thought of like greatness, you're never going to be even any close to it. You know what I mean? And so it's like, it's constant failure. It is constant you constantly, even when you think you've got a success, we did a New York Fashion Week, we did a runway show, success, a lot of press. I hated it. I'm like, fuck me, that ending was terrible. I hate, this was not right. So it's like, it's in your mind, even when it's a success, it probably is. If you're really striving to always do something and always be there, as an artist, when you sit back and be like, yes, that's great, it's time to quit that and move on to something else, because you have no more drive. It's like what makes these successful people keep going? They've got everything. What makes them keep going is because they still have that drive to keep going, to produce more and to do more and better themselves. So, and you don't get that by success all the time. Some of these guys have had failure for their whole life, and now it's just spiking. You know what I mean?
Right.
They say overnight success takes 10 years. So.
Well, it's always interesting when you see a business and it says established in such and such date, but you're only now hearing about them. I always find that interesting. And it actually, your story kind of reminds me of the Beatles, which I kind of recently heard about, which I thought was fascinating. They kind of just played locally, they weren't like super big or crazy, but they had somebody representing them. And at the time, I believe it was in Amsterdam in the red light district, they had started having performers come in, because in Amsterdam, the red light district is 24 hours a day. So they managed, whoever their recruiter or agent was at the time, managed to get them to Amsterdam and had them perform in these red light district areas, basically strip clubs or brothels, what have you. And they would perform day and night for months, then go back to England, and then come back and then do it all over again. They did that for years. So I'm not going to go and say that necessarily was a failure, but it was one of those elements of, you got to just keep doing it. And then you get good, then you see that success.
Well, I mean, it's a journey, isn't it? It's like, if I look at my work 10 years ago, or when I first got to New York, I thought I was ready, but I look back, I don't really have much left, but I see I was not ready to be there, you know what I mean? And it's like, I need more time. And even now, the line maybe isn't ready to have that big success, say an Off-White has, because, we don't have all the things in place. We're really small still. Financially, we're small. We're growing slowly. And it's like, and that's over. We started back in 2012. So, and we've had highs and we've had lows. We were coming off 2 years of quite low. 2020 was an upswing, and then we got hit by Corona, and now, no, it's still Corona. I think what's going on right now is just, that's something else. I think but really Corona is what's savagely hit all businesses, so it's kind of like, where do we go from here? So we've now got a rebuild over the next year to kind of get the wholesale back going, and then reshift our focus to e-commerce, because, you got to kind of move with the tides. But again, so it's like constant ebbs and flows in business. It's like, you think you're here and then the next minute you're here, or you think you're here and you're like, how can it go lower? And then the next year it's lower, or the next year it bounces back up. So again, you gotta have that, I think, to really be, I mean, just a business person, like, to do it, you've got to just have this like singular focus where this is like forever. There is no retirement. You know what I mean? And I don't know when I would ever retire, because it's like I do this every day. So what do you do when you retire? I don't know. So it's like I'm going to do this forever. So I'm trying to focus it into something successful. But it's like, I think if you don't like get too happy at the happy times and too low at the low times and just keep an even keel, you can kind of coast through, the highs and lows of business. But again, you've got to keep, you got to want it as well. Some people don't want it. Some people think like, oh, it's fashion. Oh, I look good. I dress good. I go to all the parties. I got this. And then, fashion is about like, the real business is about 8 seconds a year of that, or like 8 minutes. Culmination in a fashion show is like normally 8 minutes long. If you do a fashion, even if you do a fashion show, so like that's like 8 minutes of like the high, and then the rest is just work.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work involved in the business of like making clothes. It's like,
it's the same as a photographer. I mean, people have always seen me at the events and they're like, oh, I wish I could be at these events. Oh, I wish I can go and be there. And it's okay, but do you also want to spend countless hours editing photos? Do you also want to show up at random places, knocking on people's doors saying, hey, can I come in? Do you want to send out emails constantly, always be on social media, making sure your network is still aware of you and that you're aware of them? Like, do you want to do that? Because if you don't, then, you don't actually want it,
Yeah. No, I mean, it's like, there's a process behind everything. It's like, it's not just turn up and smile and, then you got it. And it's like, life's easy. It's like, it's like, there's a lot of work you got to put into everything. Like you said, photography is no joke. And then, fashion is like, you got to do all the clothing, you got to produce all the clothing, you got to produce this like 6 months out. You got to be doing, so you're producing one collection, you're designing you're getting samples for the next collection, and you're designing the collection after that. So you're always working on 3 seasons at a time. And then you have to layer on top of that all the social media that you have to do, because everything's about this stupid little tiny phone.
Yeah.
Everything is about, think about it. And, 3 posts a day, that's like 200 posts a week, like a month. And so you've always got to constantly have that kind of thought about how much content you're going to have. It's like a never ending. It's a never ending 24-hour-a-day session. And that's when you're small. When you're big, it's even harder, because you got to do even more. So as you grow, you got to do more, So,
absolutely, yeah.
It's like,
it's just, it reminds me of this concept, cognitive elasticity. And it's this idea that your mind tends to focus on a task or a process, and it becomes very challenging for your mind to let go of that task or process. And so as a side, part of the reason why I wanted to do Adrift, even though we're talking about kind of entrepreneurial type things, business things, is that I feel like what we talk about and what we learn can be applied to so many other things. And even when you're talking about the riots, like, you have to think about why those are so important. You have to think about why being so aggressive and being so loud about something you're passionate about is the ultimate way to get people to listen to you. Because they're not, you have to sell yourself as a business owner, as a person. Every day, for people to want to be around you, you have to sell yourself. And there's a lot of baggage that comes with. So going back to the idea of cognitive elasticity, you have to be able to tell your mind to stop focusing on one thing and move to the next. And then when you're done with that, stop with that thing and then move to the next, right? So during your process, I mean, you said it yourself, there's a lot of different things that you're trying to focus on and process. So how do you make that jump between, okay, I'm going to go at night, I'm sketching, but throughout the day I'm doing social media, but then I'm also making sure that I'm reaching out to my network? Like, how do you handle that?
Lists. Just lists.
Yeah?
list. I mean, I got one around here somewhere of what I'm supposed to do. You just got to like, because I'm very much ADD, because I like, especially now I'm home, I got the TV going. I'm like, then I'm like playing with the phones, what's going on with the social, and then, checking the internet. I'm also, I'm a football fan, like, real football, like with the ball, not soccer, football,
Okay.
So, and I'm a Newcastle fan. So right now we have this interesting situation, which this is just a side note. We're about to be sold, but we're about to be sold to like, the Prince of Saudi Arabia.
Hmm.
So that brings up another interesting thing, because it's like, it's my football club, but this guy who is not a good guy, not a good guy. We know that is going to buy them my club, but it also means that then my club is going to be good. So you've got that going on there. So it's kind
So,
of, there's all these different things going on in the background, and so I just have to make lists to get through my day without, and hopefully I get through my day and check them off. I've done that. Check it off. Check it off. That's the only way to do it for me right now with the lockdown.
I was going to ask a question that I think is kind of deviating a little bit, but yeah, no, that's an interesting way of looking at it. I actually need lists as well because I don't know if I can diagnose myself as ADD, but my mind goes a million miles a minute. It goes everywhere. Even to do something like this, like that's why I have to like write some of this stuff down, and I have it off to the side here. People can't see because I will totally lose track and have a great time doing it. Like we're getting, and I just want to respect a few of the people who are commenting. I know some people want to talk about a little bit more about the protest and talk about Wall Street. And I do agree with you. We got to get out of the neighborhoods and we got to go to places where it actually means something. So I appreciate the comment there.
Yeah, that's why I feel like the looting. Yeah, they don't care about that stuff. That's why they're letting it happen. Wall Street, where the money is like remember, people got to remember the money's not on the ground floor. The money's in the penthouse. So all that stuff that they're looting, they don't give a shit about that. No one gives a shit about that really. They're really protecting the people in the towers, in the top, because that's where all the real money is. Like down the bottom, shit in the stores that people are stealing. No one cares about that. No, like, the cops are just, look where the cops are standing. They're standing around, like, 3 deep around Barclays Center because they put a lot of money into that. They don't want them to break that. You know what I mean?
Okay.
They're not standing in front of, like, the Adidas store because they know Adidas is insured. They're not standing in front of the little mom and pop shops. So they don't really care about that. They care about where people's real money is. So yeah, go burn Wall Street down. That's where they should be going. If they're going to go burn it down, go burn that down.
It's
Because
like a little bit of joy that I get in hearing that, but I'm going to try and hold that feeling back just a little bit just because it's, but,
no, but I mean, it is the truth, though. Really, I saw it last night. I saw the night before. CNN makes a big thing. Oh, kids running around. How many cops did you see stopping them? None. All the cops were around. Where they keep all the gold bullion downtown in that building. You know where that is because they've all got like a lot of like machine guns. That's where they're protecting.
oh,
You
yeah,
know.
absolutely.
They're protecting, they're not protecting like the clothing stores or the food stores. They don't give a shit about them. Everybody's insured. They'll all get their money back.
Mm.
So, if you need that stuff in your life, you should go get it. But, if you want to do real damage to the man, that's where you go.
Well, so that's the thing, because I kind of grew up listening to punk. There was a lot of stages in sort of my musical evolution. There was definitely hip hop, there was reggaeton. I had my Latin influence music, and then I had punk. And I feel like, especially with music now, it's really interesting because I feel like punk and hip hop found a way to sort of coexist in a really interesting way. But that's besides the point. I feel like I learned by listening to all these different genres how to express my anger in a way that made sense, in a way that I was expressing a message, that I was being creative, that I was showing people exactly how I felt. And even if I didn't oh snap, I think we lost the guy. But just to continue, even if I don't know, I feel bad continuing if he's not here. Well, I'll give him a minute just to jump back. But yeah, Berno's saying you gotta want it, and that's 100%. And what is it? You have to define that for yourself, right? You have to want let's say, I'm a photographer, so let's say you want to be a photographer. You know what I mean? Here he is. Here, let me just jump back on with him.
I'm back. That was weird.
You got lost in the shuffle. No, I was just saying that I went on a sidebar, but basically I was just saying because Berno made another comment about wanting it, and we were talking about what is it in the very brief 2 or 3 seconds that you were gone. The it you have to define for yourself, and then you have to, like you said, create a list or a system or a process in order to figure out how to get what that is. You know, and then have the discipline to therefore go out and do it. Because these punk guys, the hip hop artists, everybody has that discipline to go and pursue that.
Yeah, I mean, you have to. I mean, it is like, again, it's challenging when you're stuck in a situation like when you're being at home, right? Because you're not normally at home. Normally, if you're in an office, you have slightly less distractions, But here, you kind of but at the end of the day, you got to do that list. You got to get your stuff done. If you don't get it done, you're not going to get anywhere. You know what I mean? You're never going to get anywhere if you're not moving forward every day towards what you want. And the it, like you said again, what is the it? It's like my it right now is death to tennis, being successful. Having enough money so that I can, pursue other things. Do other things other than depth tennis. Have a staff that I can work with where, right now, my staff is basically back down to me, especially now in quarantine, I don't have any staff. We moved out of our office, so, to get that back going again, to have that platform, to, do other things. I want to do a million different things, but, you kind of have to kind of focus on one at a time. So.
How many times if you don't mind me asking, if you don't want to say, I totally understand, but how many times have you been in that position where you were like, okay, it's not that you ever stopped bootstrapping, if you know what that term is, but how many times have you been in that position where it was like, you were saying there's highs, there's lows, where you came back down to that, let's call it a low, and you were just like, all right, back to basics, let's do this. Like, how many times have you been there?
Too many, too many. I feel like we're almost there again. We're there again because again, like I said, we had a really good wholesale going in Japan. We're really healthy. New spring summer was just about to drop, and then this whole COVID-19 thing kind of just turned everything crazy.
But are you kind of used to kind of overcoming this moment, this feeling of
Well, I'm kind of tired of it, to tell you the truth. I'm kind of getting sick and tired of it. It's kind of like, but you kind of, at the same time, you're very much like, here we go again. It's like, you can either just be like, okay, I give up. I don't want it enough. I give up. Okay, I'm done. Or I can be like, let's go, this shit isn't going to get, I'm going to win. Whatever it is, I want to win it, but we're not going to let it get us down. So, you kind of like, sometimes you can feel like, hey, all right, okay, I get it, I'm not supposed to do this, but then, it's either do this or what.
Or what? I love that.
Okay. And I think that's what people out there are like, doing. It's like, well, what else are we supposed to do?
Yeah.
It's like they tried everything else, so it's like this or what? You tell us. They're like, you tell us. I mean, I think they're probably going to keep doing what they're doing out there until someone tells them, gives them a solution that's not that. And you know what I mean.
I love that. I love that. Like, you don't understand. I looked at the time a little earlier. It's about 2:45. Like, the time blows by on these things. So I just want to make sure if there's any final notes or anything that you wanted to drop, feel free. I'm just going to look at these questions. I think we kind of touched everything that I was hoping to. No, we touched on just about everything, and especially to end with this or what and how applicable that is. Absolutely adore that. So yeah, is there any kind of final points that you wanted to share with anybody?
Not really, not really. You know, I just feel like, you know, everyone stay safe out there. If you're out there, you know, stay safe, stay away from those guys waving those truncheons, you know, because they're, you know, they're all slap happy right now, you know. So, you know, it's like curfews. I feel like are an excuse to be a bit heavy-handed. So, you know, if you're gonna loot, loot early.
Wake up early and do it.
If you're gonna loot, loot early. You know, get in before the curfew. You know,
Make sure you
all.
get your coffee and then go looting.
Yeah, you know, do it in the mornings. You know, there's much less police out in the mornings. I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
You didn't say no. I have to admit, and I just want a little disclaimer. Sometimes things are so hard to process. Sometimes your feelings are so deep about something that all you can do is kind of laugh about it. So, with that being said, I make jokes about stuff all the time. Sometimes whatever, but like with that being said, yes, everybody be safe out there, man. Do what you can. Like, you know, if you can wear a gas mask or some sort of, you know, with a filter, so you know they're gonna throw tear gas at you depending on where you are. Oh, and also a last final point as well. A lot of people are talking about being silent, and please protest in any way you feel important, but there are primaries going on today as well, so definitely pay attention to that. If you don't like the politics the way they are right now, it's not just the president. It's a whole system that you got to be a part of and in tune to. So check if you are in one of those, I think it's 9 states where your primaries are going on, look into it, get ready to vote, because we need you doing that like now. So that's my final point.
Vote.
Yes. Yes, with a big resounding
Vote these guys out.
Yes.
Vote.
Do it now. Please, for all of us, man. So everybody, thank you so much for joining. William, dude, it's such a pleasure reconnecting with you. I know we weren't going to talk too much about branding, but I do want to say I'm super stoked for some of the work that we're doing coming up. So with that being said, I won't say anything else, but very much looking forward to it, brother. Very much welcoming to have you here, and thanks for being on Adrift.
Thank you, man. Thank you. It was fun. Thanks.
Absolutely. Be well, bud.